If you watch investing content and watch personal finance content and you own less than 0.21 Bitcoin, that's just a mistake. Dive in deeper, and I'm trying to like run my own node and these things. And it's like time that you're spending on trying to learn how to do that is not helping you become more wealthy. Also fundamentally highlights a scarcity mindset of you don't believe enough in your own earning potential then. You are more wealthy than you already believe. You did it. You crushed it. Like you need to now practice like leaning into a higher level mindset to fulfill like the impact that you should have on the world, because saving 1 times your inner salary, 2 times your inner salary is a really big deal. That is a really, really big deal. And I don't think enough people have like let themselves realize it is a big deal.
Record too late and pressing stop too early.
Yes, exactly.
I just had a podcast guest on today about the core versus knots thing, and we talked about it on the podcast for like 1.5 hours, and then after the podcast we talked another 45 minutes on the topic, and I was like, why did I ever stop recording? Like, this was so good.
Yeah. That's another thing too, dude. Honestly, on that, like, I don't think that's a big deal at all. Like, I think that's a completely just side niche conversation that is just not important. Like, people are coming over to my channel and commenting like, why aren't you talking about it? Why aren't you talking about it? And I was like, because it doesn't matter. Because I'm talking to regular people about how to incorporate Bitcoin into their personal finances. I'm not talking about like insider Bitcoin drama, basically. And that's honestly what I've been focused on, is just like what is going to take Bitcoin even more mainstream than it already is, and really trying to like actually think about that.
I think that's a great starting point, and to start off the podcast, where like, what is it that actually brings the long-term people into Bitcoin? Like, what is the top of the funnel? Because we all know, like, you fall down a rabbit hole. Like, you first get Bitcoin, then you get into self-custody, you run your own node, you do all the things, and then maybe down the line, like very on the bottom of the funnel, where like almost nobody is anymore, you care a lot about Bitcoin Core versus knots, and like I covered that topic back and forth, and stated my opinions many times, so I don't need to do it on this podcast. But like, the important thing is that people are interested in Bitcoin and coming in there and increasing their allocation, I guess.
Yeah, no, on that, like, I'm not sure that like learning to run your own node and like learning self-custody and all that stuff, like I'll just touch the third rail on that. I don't know if you have to do that immediately right away anymore. And I don't know if that even is the best thing to be focused on, because like I said, I'm in the habit of recording on my channel twice a day right now. And I'm trying to just record very top level, like why 0.21 Bitcoin matters, like why you should be allocated to Bitcoin, just very mainstream messages. And I've received emails from people that are like, hey, you know, I'm trying to dive in deeper, and I'm trying to like run my own node and these things. And it's like, dude, like honestly, the time that you're spending on trying to learn how to do that is not helping you become more wealthy. It's not. It's and all the time you're trying to learn about the different wallets and all that stuff it's not helping you become more wealthy. It's not helping your like family really. And I've just been really, really running my head over that, of like, I almost think that it's better to just stack, and everyone knows this, but like stack as much Bitcoin as possible. Like, and then the rest honestly like falls into place. Like the optionality of just getting as much Bitcoin as possible, and not in a frantic way. That's what bothers me so much about Bitcoin podcasts and YouTube videos. I feel like is so frantic. Like, oh, you have to stack Bitcoin today because the institutions are buying it all. You have to have an opinion about the latest node software because the network could be in trouble. Like, I feel like we're just recreating the way that regular news works and like regular cycles work. And I'm almost coming back to the full left curve of like, if I want to consume drama content, like I'm going to go consume fantasy football content about what's happening with the different football players and injuries or whatever. I'm not going to, like, I don't need that from Bitcoin anymore. Bitcoin used to be so much of like a community that where I would like show up to Twitter every day and talk with people about the latest things of what's going on. But so much more and more, I feel like the conversations that are still there and happening are, dude, they're not central to anything. They're not central to anything. Like here's an example. I've been testing out like Fidelity's crypto product. Like I just deposited Bitcoin into Fidelity's crypto product. That like feeling like, what is it like to use the most mainstream of mainstream like new products? And the conversations happening online around Bitcoin on like the farthest niche of it is just not relevant to that at all. Like I'm really trying to understand kind of what a regular person is like now these days.
And I get that a lot because, like if you go down the full security and running your own node rabbit hole, you spend maybe like 500 or to $1,000 on the node. You spend on the hardware wallet. You spend on all the things. And I come from IT security, and I say that, like for me, it's like the stack size has to kind of reflect what your security cost and security allocation is. If you have 10 Bitcoin, yeah, like get nice security setup, like do that. If you have $1,000 in Bitcoin, don't buy a $200 self custody device where you can stamp the Bitcoin on a metal plate. Like that does not make sense at all. But if you have like 100 Bitcoin, it probably makes sense to think about how you keep them, and where to distribute them, and like multi-sig and like all that shit. I mean, you can also have them in the ETF and trust the third parties, but I'm more on the side of like doing self custody. So I think the security budget should, like your stack should represent the security budget of your custody setup.
Super great point. Honestly, super great point. And I think, and you're right. That's what's hard about that's what's hard about talking about on the internet about anything, right? Is you want to talk to a generalist audience and a specific audience at the same time. And so the generalist audience that I've been carving out of like really trying to talk to is 35 to 55 year olds in the United States that just have regular jobs and are under allocated to Bitcoin. And this includes people that watch other crypto channels. This includes people that watch CNBC and Fox Business all the time, because you're absolutely right. They almost think there still is this thing out here. And Bitcoiners have like cried against shitcoins for a long time, but I'm trying to take it past that. It's not the old way of just crying against shitcoins. It's just a very logical, like, if you watch investing content and watch personal finance content and you own less than 0.21 Bitcoin, like that's just a mistake. Like that's not the best thing you can do. And up to 0.21, that's like as of today, like $18,000, $20,000 worth of Bitcoin. You're right. The way that you secure that can be anything. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And if someone off the street walks up and can't buy $20,000 of Bitcoin and feel safe about it, the network has a problem then the network has a problem if someone can't just get started. Someone needs to just be able to get started with $18,000, $20,000, $25,000 of Bitcoin without having to, just be so nerdy in the weeds of like learning new stuff. And so that's why I'm just not interested in that. Like, I'm not keeping up on the latest of any of that at all.
I think it's a good thing to do, because it's like you kind of have to, as I said, and I appreciate, because there's like many different educational pillars and content creators for many different segments. For example, you know him, Ben from BTC Sessions. He covers like the other end of the spectrum, where people already know the why they are Bitcoin doing. He's just covering the how. He's like covering all the wallets and all the things. And I think we need all of that. But I think the most important thing is actually, I mean, I'm biased because I do the same thing. Like the why Bitcoin, like you like most people are completely under allocated. Most people don't take Bitcoin serious enough. I get it because I poll my audience actually every single day with different questions. And what I get constantly is like, yeah, they're not bullish enough on Bitcoin. Nobody is bullish enough on Bitcoin.
It's a great point on the why versus how. And you're right. There's some, I understand the being over it on the why front, and then that's the reason why you dig in on the kind of tech front. Completely understand that. The other how, though, that isn't getting enough surface area is the personal finance side. Like OG Bitcoiners were great at talking about like the why, and they were great at talking about the how on the tech side. It's still way, way under talked about the how on the personal finance side. Like, okay, so say I've already done my 1,000 hours of the why, and I've already done my 1,000 hours of the like how on the tech side. Now I'm a dad living in the suburbs with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old now. Like my life is infinitely more complex than it was 8 years ago, 9 years ago when I started talking about Bitcoin on the internet. And I'm craving other, again, 35 to 55-year-olds having a faster time on offboarding from dollars onto Bitcoin with the physical how. That's why for so long when people are like, oh, well, how do you spend it? They didn't need 50 answers back about Austrian economics about how, like, why spending is bad. No, just answer their question. And what's sweet is that now we're able to say, well, Steak and Shake takes it. Well, Sheetz convenience store takes it. We can actually answer the question now rather than talking in so much theory. And I think that's exciting. I think that proves that Bitcoin is mainstream right now. Bitcoin is mainstream. And it's almost in this weird, like, mainstream lull where everyone knows about it, but they're still not doing enough about it.
And you teased it because I think personal finance is something where a lot of Bitcoiners are like, oh yeah, I have Bitcoin. That's my personal finance. And I'm like, that's not personal finance. What is kind of the how that you see for personal finance paired with Bitcoin? Like what's important there?
I think mentally working down the friction between dollars and Bitcoin. I think for a while I was talking about like get on zero fiat. And that was a good mental exercise. It was a great mental exercise to force yourself to go all the way there. So if you do a mental exercise and force yourself to go all the way there, the daily like holding power of Bitcoin is actually like the odds of Bitcoin increasing in purchasing power every day is there. And even after you account for the friction of taxes. And so doing the mental exercise of going all the way there is helpful because then what you can do is you can pull it back to wherever is convenient. Then you're seeking for convenience. So the math already says holding Bitcoin on all time frames is better than holding fiat, okay? But then practically and convenience-wise, it's about finding the main way that you can reduce as much friction as possible between Bitcoin and dollars. Because I think still the mainstream Bitcoin personal finance advice is to hold the two buckets very separately. And it just every point in my life where I have again reduced that friction between the buckets, I've actually taken a step forward in my personal finances. Like my standard of living has gone up. The ability for me to make more money has gone up. My actual like mental lightness freedom has gone up rather than keeping them in these like separate buckets.
And I've made the switch now. I'm in a lucky position because I earn also Bitcoin and I can spend some Bitcoin. And the moment I spent my first a little bit Bitcoin, where I paid a freelancer, I lost my fear of spending Bitcoin. And we have so much fear because we always say like, hodl, don't sell, hodl, don't sell. And it's just like such a constant meme. You see it on Twitter, you see it on YouTube, the podcasts are talking about it. And you're like, oh, I cannot sell my Bitcoin. Oh, I will die with my Bitcoin because I'm so fucking afraid to sell my Bitcoin. And I had that in me and I sold my first ones. I was like, oh, Bitcoin is money. I can use it as such. It's an incredible moment. And I'm all in Bitcoin. So at some point I have to sell some, and actually I sell Bitcoin now. I shouldn't say sell. I spend my Bitcoin now every single month, sometimes even every single week.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Once it happens, once you rip the Band-Aid off and it happens, it frees you up. It fully frees you up. And because I think speaking about the fear, speaking exactly on that point, I think people are afraid that if they they see it as a black and white thing. And they think that if they switch into selling mode or if they switch into spending mode, that they will never get that much Bitcoin again. And so it's great. We've all been focused on stacking and stacking and stacking. And so we have our high watermark for how many Bitcoin units we have. And then we feel like, oh, if we spend some, then we will never reach that high watermark again. And Bitcoin is going to $1 million. So then we will won't be as wealthy as, we imagine that we will be in the future. And I just think that's fundamentally incorrect. That's fundamentally incorrect. And it also fundamentally highlights a scarcity mindset of you don't believe enough in your own earning potential then. You don't believe enough in your own personal finance management potential. And you are more wealthy than you already believe. It really does get down to a mindset thing. And Bitcoiners do need to work on their mindset. If you've been saving Bitcoin for any amount of time and you have 1 times your annual salary, 2 times your annual salary saved up, you did it. You did it. You crushed it. You need to now practice leaning into a higher level mindset to fulfill the impact that you should have on the world, because saving 1 times your annual salary, 2 times your annual salary is a really big deal. That is a really, really big deal. And I don't think enough people have let themselves realize it is a big deal.
What is this scarcity mindset? Is a scarcity mindset and abundance mindset the things you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Just knowing that I think deep down, another way to phrase it is deep down, I think a lot of Bitcoiners, the reason why it hurts so much when someone says you got lucky, or they see it as just oh, sweet, you made the right choice, buying so early or whatever, and just kind of to shrug it off. I think deep down, we some people actually, and I struggled with this, actually believe that we were lucky, that was the best thing that we ever decided. The best decision we ever made is now behind us. It's now in the rear view mirror. So we're still stacking and still clinging on to the hope of that Bitcoin stack being what fulfills us in life, rather than kind of leaning into the next thing. You should have goals past stacking Bitcoin. You should have goals past that, and just using it as a resource to and here's the thing. By doing that, I actually believe you will have more Bitcoin than you currently do. I actually believe you're going to end up more wealthy by changing that part of your brain that currently is afraid of spending Bitcoin, because of what it's going to unlock for you.
Yeah, Bitcoin is a tool to bring more life into your life and not more life into your Bitcoin, if that makes sense. Bitcoin is still a resource, Bitcoin is still a tool. And we get so religious about the hodling thing. And I get it. I think it's a great meme to get people away from this DCA, away from the fearful, being fearful when Bitcoin goes down, basically. If you have DCA and HODL, those memes, people really catch on that. And I've talked with so many exchange providers like Relay and all of them. They always tell me when Bitcoin crashes hard, that's where the buy volume is the highest. So those DCA, buy the dip, those memes, they really work. And people actually take account of that, and that's great. But at the same time, why would you use dollars to fund your life? And why wouldn't you use a Bitcoin to fund your life? It's a tool. If you stack, and who was someone brought the quote up in the podcast where he said I have the goal to die poor. I want to die broke. And there's some element to that I really like. Some people might want to give wealth to their families and their kids, and it's probably a good idea to leave something. But having that mindset of I accumulate, but I also spend. I also want to enjoy my life. The wealth that I created, I have a right to also use. I think that's amazing. You should definitely do that.
Here's a real practical example of that. I think leaving money to your kids, I think, is interesting. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So that's my personal bias where I'm coming at this. I think leaving money to your kids is interesting. I think that families building family like wealth and a family brand is interesting. And there's a giant part of me that likes that. Also, at the same time, something that I've recognized is like my ability to blow $100 at an arcade on some dumb plastic toys and some dumb 20 minutes of like arcade entertainment with my 4-year-old son, that almost is sending an even bigger signal to him that like the $100, like we can get it again. We can get it again. Like I don't like, whereas me, okay, when I grew up, it was like, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's worth it. I don't know if that's worth it to pay the $215 registration fee for the Little League Baseball League. I don't know if that, buying the extra package at Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know if that's worth it. Everyone getting sodas when we're going out to eat instead of water. It's like, I don't know. Like, that's where I grew up. So every conversation was like a cost benefit analysis on the money versus the thing. And the money almost always won. Okay. So from a mentality perspective, if you can get in your kids like we can make it again. We can make it again. Like, so life is easy. Life is easy. Money comes to us and life is easy. And on top of that, because we have Bitcoin, because we use a better currency than the standard in the world right now, it is going up for us while we're sleeping. Like Bitcoin is, we are, the value of the world is accruing to us because we make good decisions. The value of the world is accruing to us because we make good decisions. So you know what? Me and you can hang out at this arcade. We can do this because we have the ability to do this and save for our future. It's both. Like Bitcoin allows you to have your cake and eat it too. It's both. That's the power of Bitcoin, is that when you switch from fiat to Bitcoin, you are accruing the value of the world to you, and everyone can experience that abundance. But we have to like be examples as early adopters of it.
I do love the watches from Coin Vigilante, but today I have a very special message, not from me, but from the CEO himself, Carlos from Coin Vigilante. Let's hear him.
To all the Robin Seyr podcast community, I'm Carlos Estrada from Coin Vigilante, and we're sponsors of the show, and we're going to give you a very special discount exclusive to you. 10% off your order at coinvigilante.com when you use Robin at checkout. We have really nice watches that you guys can buy right now for 10%. This is a transparency edition, beautiful watch. These watches are worn in over 55 countries and counting. This discount is just for you, exclusive to the Robin Seyr podcast. We have limited editions, we have limited productions. These watches come in very nice packaging, boxing material, and they are collector's item for Bitcoiners only. Enjoy the discount. Thanks for supporting the show and Coin Vigilante.
I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC-free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They're also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I love that. I think I will quote you on that. Like you can have the cake and we'll eat. You can have the cake and you can eat it too. That's amazing. And I think it ties into. It's almost like a philosophical thing that Bitcoiners naturally probably struggle with, where the time that you spend, you will never get back. I mean, outside of like, don't die and like we clone ourselves. Like I will let that out of the window now for the time being. So like our time, we don't get back. Bitcoin, you can definitely make back. I mean, there's always this extreme example. Like, it's always so fun when I talk about spending Bitcoin. Someone in the comment is like, oh, but the pizza guy, like he spent 10,000 Bitcoin. He never gets a bet. Yeah, but if you would have adopted full Bitcoin standard with all your money in 2010 when the Bitcoin transaction was, you probably would have had like 1 million Bitcoin, maybe even beyond that. I don't know. I have no clue how much it would be. And so those 10,000 Bitcoin would have been nothing to you because it was just like, I don't know, $30 or something like that back then. So it's not about the 10,000 Bitcoin. It's about that he enjoyed a great moment with his family. He bought 2 pizzas. He had it and he enjoyed it. And that's what's more important there. And this is such an underrated topic. I love that we went in there. I haven't planned it, but like that's like such an important topic.
I 100%. And also, look, I love that you brought up Don't Die because I love watching Brian Johnson on YouTube. And I think there is synergy with that and Bitcoin, because what Brian Johnson does a great job of doing is he says, look, the cultural norms of today are irrelevant 10 years from now and 15 years from now. Like he's just like, why on earth would I take health advice from people with the stories of today that haven't run the numbers and run the data and are like leaning into AI and doing all that stuff? The cultural norms 15 years from now are unrecognizable. And I've been applying that to Bitcoin to be like, why on earth would I be applying fiat personal finance principles to the way that I'm using Bitcoin? Like, why on earth would I do that? Like, I just got done using a financial advisor for the last 7 to 9 months because I wanted to feel like what it was like. And I honestly, I went on the internet, hired this awesome guy. He's genuinely awesome. He like leans into Bitcoin, holds like 30% of his net worth in Bitcoin, like millennial, genuinely awesome. But the one thing that I kept like, couldn't like fully really like get in line with was the like having to hit this 20% savings threshold. Like, oh, you want to be saving 20% of your income. You want to be saving 20% of your income. And I was like, I get that. And I understand being aggressive and hitting like an aggressive savings target. But here's the flip side I've also been thinking about is that when you're 30 to 50, like that's crunch time, or especially like 30 to 40. And if you have kids, like that's crunch time. Like life is expensive and random shit is happening to you all the time. And you're like moving homes and you're like buying stuff and you're like your kids, like we're starting to send our kids to like private school. Like, and that's something I never did. Like that stuff matters right now, today. That matters today. I'm trying to nail today. And if that forces me to only have a 5% savings rate, that's okay to execute today. And I think I'm not going to let like numbers in my head dictate executing today, because I so much believe, number one, I so much believe in the power of Bitcoin to like 15 years from now, the world's going to be fully different. And I so much believe in the power of my own self, that my own ability to create the income 15 years from now in that world, like that's what I mean by you can have both. And I think for fiat by the very nature of it, like going down and slipping through our fingers and the melting ice cube, it forces us to constantly feel like there's trade-offs in the world. Fiat causes us to feel like things are scarce. It feels like, oh, buying the sodas at dinner is a trade-off, or like sending your kids to a nice school is a trade-off, or going on a nice vacation is a trade-off. Like, where it's not, it doesn't have to be anymore. Like, Bitcoin is accruing the value of the world. And so, no, like, I am not fully there on the, like, I want to die with zero, even though I'm glad that that's a thing and I'm glad that's taking off. I believe that is directionally correct. I'm more like, you can have all of it. Like, you can have all of it. So stop using the old paradigms.
I think it's also the most capitalistic thing you can do. And I don't want to start my kids with nothing. But if you think about a perfect capitalistic world, everyone would start with zero. So everyone has the same playing ground, and then they have the same chances of saying like, you can accrue capital as you want. I mean, there's like different philosophies around that. Like, I don't want to get political, but I think it's a deeply liberal and maybe even capitalistic view of like everyone starts with zero. But of course, this is not possible without the state taking everything. So I'm more of a proponent of the family should keep it and not the state taking it. But if you and there's this mindset of like, if you have achieved a lot in life and you've done very well for yourself, I don't know who said it, but there was this one guy saying like, I fly in the first class, but I book my kids the economy class because they haven't yet earned it to sit in the first class. Now, and if there's some part in me that says, I love that. like I absolutely love that you have to earn what you do. And it's a whole different topic now, but I think, this like, dying with zero, might empower your kids more than you think.
I think the best gift you can get, this is early in my parenting career, but I feel like the best thing to give them, whether they're starting with zero or starting with a lot, again, is that example of you living without anxiety around money. Like, just straight up, will dial it all the way down into that. I think so often, like, I've really been practicing this in the mornings, and I've transparently been going to like a lot of therapy about this, of just like relaxing your own anxiety and being like, it's okay. Like, I don't have to rush off. I actually do have this 45 minutes. It's the same thing as money, like being able to blow the $100. I actually do have this 45 minutes with you that I don't feel rushed to go be productive or do something else. It's actually okay. Like, our life is organized enough that I can spend this quiet, like, ramping up morning with you just into the day, and doing that with them every day, of them feeling like they can wake up and get into the day rather than feeling this like immediate, like, we all know this feeling, the Sunday scaries before work, or the dread of not wanting to wake up. Like, we all know that feeling. And I actually think them watching you take that on head on every day is what's going to, whether they start with zero or start with a lot, that's what's going to help them use the resources that they have at that time. Because rather than, and it's just Bitcoin, thankfully, what does Bitcoin have to do with that? What Bitcoin has to do with that is it gives you space to do that. Like, Bitcoin is like a money battery that gives you, it just lasts longer. It lasts longer and it sits there more secure. So that feeds into your brain of like, you know what? I am okay. Like do you, and it is a mindset. Like, do you feel okay? Are you actually okay when you're sitting with yourself? Like, are you okay? And I think your friends understand that. I think your family feels that. I think little kids especially like really feel that. And so more and more, like that's what Bitcoin is doing for me, is it's like giving me a real peace of mind. And that peace of mind only came after I rubbed down the friction of like pulling stuff back into my life using that money.
That's so great. I love that. And it's kind of pointing to the importance of like, you have a tool, you should use it. And it's okay to use it. And a lot of people, I think a lot of people, Bitcoiners have to work through that. But I want to touch on something you said earlier, that so many people are under allocated to Bitcoin. Why do you think this still is the way? Like, what is a big hurdle that like people still view Bitcoin as kind of a side investment?
Yeah, I think let's just talk to people here on YouTube. So if you're here on YouTube, you're searching Bitcoin, you're searching crypto, you're searching personal finance. The most of the time when you click on a crypto video, it's talking to traders about different ticker symbols and talking about timing that ticker symbol to create income in your life. Okay. So like that's one type of video. And then the other type of video you find the like Bitcoiner, like calling the other stuff shitcoins and saying to not do that. And both of those things talk past each other and talk past each other and talk past each other. And then what happens is you, as the viewer is basically like, then they see the $100,000 Bitcoin price and they turn on the regular TV to CNBC and Fox Business and they see talk about the ETF and they see talk about Bitcoin treasury companies and they are like, oh, so Bitcoin is a big macro thing for them. Oh, I'm going to buy Doge because that's a smaller unit and that will go up in price. And this even happens to people that don't watch crypto YouTube and don't watch anything. It's just simply like, I'm talking to like regular people that you run into repeatedly. It's just like, oh yeah, when the Elon Saturday Night Live thing happened, like I threw money at Doge on Robinhood. And then they tell you either they made money or they lost money. And I'm like, again, that's an interesting story. That's completely separate from Bitcoin. So, and I'm not even making a value judgment about that anymore. I'm just like, I'm trying to really refresh this entire conversation and stop both these worlds talking past each other. So, you know what? That's awesome. It's great. Like, that's just completely separate. That's just completely separate. Bitcoin, and here's the thing I've been saying about Bitcoin that fully separates it. There's no public founder. Let's just start. There's no public founder, which means there's no one that's able to issue new shares and water it down. Every single other stock has that. Every single other crypto has that. They have public founders. Every other currency has a board of governors that can issue new shares and water it down. Bitcoin is the only provably neutral thing that doesn't have a public founder, which means that the 21 million hard cap is protected. Okay? That's why you owning 0.21, owning 0.01 is a big deal. And so you're not like, and it's just really being like, you're not late, and it's not for getting rich immediately. It's for money has been upgraded from fiat to a better way of doing it. Here's the other thing I also do. Because I recognize we repeat ourselves a lot. So like I would say like fiat, or I'll say like monetary policy, or I'll say like what I do in my videos is I like literally pause and I tangent and I'm like, look, pause the video and type into ChatGPT, what is fiat currency? Pause the video, type into ChatGPT, what is monetary policy? Like because so much of the time, dude, like here's the thing. There's people out there that are under allocated to Bitcoin that are watching this right now, very quick on their lunch break, that then they hear the buzzwords and they're not connecting with it. They're not connecting with it, and they're not realizing the gravity of it. Okay. Because people are tired and strapped for time. People are tired and I was talking to a friend the other day and he was like, we're talking about Bitcoin. He was like, oh yeah, like in Hashimoto or whatever. And he was like, he literally didn't even know, like people don't know Satoshi. They don't know anything. they're so strapped for time, and there's such a game of telephone with Bitcoin and crypto information that they're just bits and biting it from lots of different places. So what I do is I stop my video and I'm like, ask ChatGPT to explain this to you. And if the first one doesn't make sense, then type it in again and say, explain it to me like I'm a 12-year-old, or explain it to me in 2 sentences. Don't say more. Like, and then come back to the video. And so that's the reason why people are under allocated, is because they're focused on ticker symbols and trading for money. They're thinking that Bitcoin is only for rich people and only for institutions now. And they're not connecting why it's fully different than anything else in the world.
I even thought about that for the podcast, but it's a lot of work. Putting in community notes while I say something that might be confusing, of just like a short, like 1, 2, 3 sentences for that. Like what does this even mean? A little bit. It will never replace, of course, like a ChatGPT search and asking it back and forth. But often it's just like giving the people enough of an idea what that word means and what it represents, for them to understand the overall point. They don't have to be an expert on everything. So I thought about that. It's just like like an everyday podcast.
Well, no, and you'll never know exactly what the term is. And so I honestly think that's really interesting that learning is a skill. I'm trying to say this in a non-cliche way. Understanding how to find new information is a skill. And that almost is like the meta skill that unlocks everything else. And that's why again, I bring up in my videos, like, I've been watching Bitcoin YouTube videos for 10 years. I've been watching Bitcoin content on YouTube for 10 years. That's a long time. That's a long time. And so I think just like understand, but even taking Bitcoin out of it for a second, I learned how to do like rental investing, like on YouTube. I learned how to do gardening on YouTube. Like once you learn how to deep dive something and like get to the bottom and come back up and work it into your own life, it's then easier to do it for other things. And so, yeah, I just think like that's why I love YouTube so much.
It's the biggest educational platform in the world, where most successful people, like it's probably the most successful university in the world, if you would frame it as that. I can do like everything I do right now, not everything. Like most of what I do right now, I've learned on YouTube, and now more and more ChatGPT comes also in the mix.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 21 million hard cap, and I think it's also one of those things that is so often just taken for granted in Bitcoin. It's like we say, yeah, it's 21 million hard cap. Like we say, oh, it's disinflationary or deflationary, like however you want to say it. And it's capped with 21 million. And I learned that normal people don't even know that there is something like that Bitcoin is hard capped. And that it actually matters a lot, and how this kind of changes the whole game for Bitcoin. And I just wanted to add that because I think you're absolutely right when you say the most fundamental things in Bitcoin are not yet understood by the mainstream masses, which is also a reason why people are underallocated, because this shows how early we are.
Correct. Because, and then, and I'll repeat it like, oh, this is a good thing, right? But then truly putting on your like normie hat, like then other people are like, oh, well, if there's only 20 million, that means there's not enough for everyone, which means that Bitcoin is going to perpetuate the wealth inequality gap, which means like, and you're like, wow. Like, and honestly, you know what? You're right. Like, you're right. That honestly is like, I totally get why you have that experience, and I totally get why you're looking at it like that. And honestly, I think that's the best argument against Bitcoin. Like, that's the best argument against Bitcoin. And that takes a lot of thinking. And I've been just having a lot more kind of empathy for people that built their wealth in other ways, or can like identify with that, because it's just, you know what? Like, I get that. I get why you feel like that. And then you really just kind of come back with like, there isn't any like, but fiat is still bad. Like, fiat is still bad, and we've been trying it that way for a long time. And now the price of buying a house is like X more times than an annual salary than it was back in the day. And so like that structurally is not working. And then you just really have to get into like I've been telling people to look up the video, Everything Divided by 21 Million. Like Everything Divided by 21 Million is an excellent YouTube video, absolutely excellent YouTube video, and talks about how all the value in the world is accruing to being measured in these 21 million units. So yes, having a fixed set of units would be bad if the units went down in purchasing power the way that fiat money does, but it doesn't. It's the opposite. So every single unit that you do have is increasing in purchasing power as the monetary network grows, which is the reason why it actually solves wealth inequality, because now people that don't have homes and don't have stocks and don't have commodities actually have money that has those properties of not being watered down and devalued all the time. And so, yeah, it's just finding newer and newer ways to like get that message out.
And last time we also spoke about that, and I want to cover that also today a little bit. 0.21 Bitcoin, and I think it's very interesting. Like, first of all, since we last spoke, Bitcoin about doubled. It's about a year ago, and like it about doubled. I don't know exactly when we recorded, but around like 100% gainer. So like about a doubling. It made that 0.21 Bitcoin a lot more expensive, about double, of course. So why 0.21? And also, do you think we actually have to decrease it over time as purchasing power accrues in there?
Yeah, so 0.21, the reason for 0.21 being interesting is because if you take 21 million, divide by 0.21, you get 100 million. There's 8 billion people in the world. 100 million is the top 1%. So for the fiat equivalent of 0.21, again, I just tell people, like, I just like using Google. When you're already on the computer, just Bitcoin price, and then in the little Bitcoin box, you type 0.21, it gives you the fiat equivalent. For the fiat equivalent of that, you can be in the top 1% Bitcoin holder in the world. And then, and likely higher, right? Because of the amount that Bitcoin treasury companies have bought, the amount that countries have bought, 0.21 is a significantly big deal. Owning 0.21 Bitcoin is not a small amount of Bitcoin. That's a very large, significant amount of Bitcoin. The equivalent fiat is not influential in the world. To an individual, it might be. To everyone's personal finances are different. It is an okay amount of savings, but from an overall world influence perspective, it's inconsequential. You are not anywhere close to the top 1% in fiat when you take a look at that number. And so relatively, Bitcoin is still very, very cheap, very, very inexpensive, and a lot of upside to go as all the value in the world accrues to Bitcoin. What I do tell people is, like, you don't have to buy all 0.21 at a time. I like to tell people, like, take it 0.01 at a time. Because when you take it 0.01 at a time, what you're doing is you're mentally flipping the units. You're flipping the units. Rather than being focused constantly on the fiat value of your stack of Bitcoin, you are saying, I am taking 0.01 Bitcoin of this fixed network into my control. And then I'm taking another 0.01 of this fixed network into my control, and realizing that, like, that switch, when you make that mental switch and are focused on that, that's when you're off to the races. Like, that's when you that's when you're really turning on the gas of, like, being a wealthy Bitcoiner, like, genuinely. Because people that still constantly only are focused on the fiat value of it, they haven't fully absorbed that it is the next money. And so we're still incredibly just at that part of, the number one thing you can do is switch the unit that you're focused on.
Yeah, doing a unit of account switch, like Bitcoin as your main unit of account, is so powerful, because all of a sudden I made that. I do that with houses all the time. If you go back and, like, what is the house price in Bitcoin in 2017? What is the house price in 2021? I think 2021 was it 30 or 300? Like, one of that. And it was previously, like, at 3,000. I think the starting point around 2010 or 2011, it was around 400,000 Bitcoin, one average home price. We're now at four Bitcoin. So naturally, we will come down to 1 Bitcoin, 0.1 Bitcoin, and all of the rest. Like, switching unit of account, like that shit is powerful.
It is. And so, That's the other thing I like to talk about on my channel is how Bitcoiners can leverage like Bitcoin to buy real estate. So my wife and I have been doing Bitcoin together for 10 years. We own 3 houses here in Southern California, and we did it all without any like parent down payment or anything like that. It was simply like switching our unit of account to Bitcoin, understanding how the mortgage process works, like being a dual income household and like working together to understand the loan process. We're like being a homeowner is absolutely within reach. And I don't care what other Bitcoiners say. Like, I think Bitcoin is the second best. Like I think real estate is the second best. Like I do believe there's a second best. Real estate was the most tried and true way to become a millionaire in the United States prior to Bitcoin. I believe Bitcoin is the new tried and true way to become a millionaire in the United States. And I think that the intersection of both of them is really, really powerful. And so I talk a lot about, as you can see, I could talk a lot about influence and talk a lot about mindset. Becoming a homeowner changes your influence in your local town. Becoming a homeowner changes your mindset. And so I don't buy the digital nomad rent forever thing at all. I do buy being a homeowner, owning real estate, taking physical ground, switching your unit of account from fiat to Bitcoin. And I think that is what tees up the like a healthy family legacy, healthy family like wealth, teaching your kids how to like invest in a local community. I'm big on the like real estate and rental investing.
That's awesome to see. And I think also, I make a lot of comparisons with that, but in general, a lot of Bitcoiners actually either own their own home or actually want to own their own home. I always keep that in mind when I bring those examples, like how real estate crashes against Bitcoin is there's an emotional side to owning your own home, and there is building your family in a town that you choose side to that argument. So there is a life side to a financial decision to it. And like if you just look from a financial perspective and you say like, oh, like is it either Bitcoin or real estate? It's very clear that Bitcoin is better. But combining them or like just owning the home, also the third aspect of like having a family and having something where you can start something like that's tremendously amazing, and you should definitely consider that.
Yep. The one thing I would say on the straight up spreadsheet comparison, if you take a look at the way, again, I talked to a very US centric audience, the fact that you can buy a home for 3% or 5% down and finance 97%, 95% of it actually makes the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin versus real estate very, very close, actually. When you look at the actual size of the investment. Like, so if you take 3% of a standard home price and then you just look at the appreciation of that versus buying that much Bitcoin, the fact that you can get 97% leverage when buying real estate actually makes the compound annual growth rate very close, because they both go up with inflation. They both go up with the devaluation of the dollar. And so, yeah, I like relaying that to Bitcoiners, is that there's way less heartache there than, again, Bitcoin personal finance advice has led us to believe.
That's interesting. I always looked, when I compared things, maybe that's because I'm Austrian, always looked at 20% down as the standard. And in all those comparisons, even if Bitcoin only has a 10% CAGR, Bitcoin just rocks against real estate, because it 20% down invested directly in that asset like takes you so much further. But if you only have 3% down, this changes the whole calculation.
Yeah, and you take the entire value of the house. Inflation is accruing to the entire value of the house, including the amount that you loaned against. And on top of that, so then when you do own your own home and you sit in the home and the dollar devalues against the home equity line of credit in the United States is like an extremely like lucrative loan to like have. It just you basically get dollar liquidity for not holding dollars. All you're doing is like, because I have done these videos too, where it's like, there's basically 3 buckets of money. There's physical dollars you have on hand, there's physical Bitcoin you have on hand, and then there's dollar-based debt. And I actually believe that like it's a debt-based system. We're living in a debt-based system. And so if you keep your like dollar-based debt basically about equal with the amount of assets you hold, you're like keeping a healthy leverage rate while like accruing as much of the inflation benefit as possible. And that's the way that you, I don't know, can just like get ahead. And so, because when Bitcoiners really try to talk about like Bitcoin backed lending, and Bitcoin backed lending is getting better and the products are getting better all the time. Home equity backed lending has been around for an entirely long time, is relatively really easy to get. And the interest rates right now are better than Bitcoin backed lending.
Way better. I don't know like about US because I only know in Austria. It's very hard to get like a Bitcoin borrowing against a Bitcoin. It's like at least 10%, sometimes 12, 13, where at some point it makes more sense to just get a standard loan and buy Bitcoin and not even tell them about your Bitcoin, because it's sometimes easier to do that. I mean, with a home loan, you're like 2, 3, 4% of interest rates versus like 13. Like everyone that knows about exponential growth knows what the difference between 3% and 13% is. It's like it's a whole different world.
Absolutely. I think there's so much. I really want to attack the how on that personal finance stuff a lot. I really want to start to get in the groove of like releasing a lot of information on my like channel about that, because I think there's a huge appetite for that type of information, for just how to incorporate Bitcoin into your personal finances.
That's amazing. I have one question that I asked each and every one of my returning guests on my podcast, and the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance?
There's some. What have I learned since last time? Probably all of the emotional intelligence stuff that I was talking about. Like I've really just been working on just like being a better human, like being really like comfortable and not anxious, and learning how to slow down and realizing that like I'm not in a rush. Like I'm not in a rush. I'm good. And really detaching my identity from Bitcoin, detaching my identity from my job. Like I'm not defined by that. Like I am enough. Like I am enough and I am okay. And really just enjoying it. It sounds cliche. And I've never been the guy that's like, I never have been the guy that's like, oh, I love my time with my kids. But like, I really have been leaning into that of like actually being more comfortable and more present is a big like personal muscle I've been working on.
That's amazing. This is probably the best thing you can learn because it enables so much more growth in all the other aspects of it. And this is also something I always say is, I mean, always, it's a relative term, but something that I'm really big on is if you invest in yourself, this is the only investment that will outperform every other investment, even 5x Bitcoin leverage. You can't be better than that.
Genuinely, completely agree. And it takes trying it. It takes trying it to really believe that about yourself. But it really is the best thing you can do.
It was such a great episode. We have an end routine in the podcast, as you maybe know from last time, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And we already kind of discussed the last this question, but I will just put it to you again. Maybe you have something to add. Where do you stand on the Bitcoin core versus NOTs debate?
Yeah, no, great question. Look, I haven't loved the position on like filters being necessary for a long time, even before all of this. I'm like unabashedly pro Ordinals and pro inscriptions. I think all demand for Bitcoin block space is the same, and a valid transaction is a valid transaction. And so I don't have any heartache over like what implementation like anyone is using. Like use whatever implementation you want. But a valid transaction is a valid transaction. And I don't think spam is a thing. I just don't believe that.
Yeah. And I just, the previous episode was just about core versus NOTs from someone that runs NOTs. But he's shitting a lot on NOTs actually, because they're using very emotionally charged arguments. And the funny thing, I asked him the question, if core and NOTs would be completely the same thing, accept op return. So like the filtering issue that we're talking about currently. What would you do? He's like, I would be on core. and someone that runs core, he's running core long before op return. He says it's a complete nothing burger, this whole op return thing. He's still thinking that core is evil. Like there's a whole nother debate that I don't want to open now. And I agree with some of the points. But the whole op return thing is just such a huge topic. And that's why also people probably ask you in your comment section, because it involves all types of emotionally charged arguments of like, oh, you are distributing illegal content if you're using Bitcoin Core. I'm like, no, you don't. That's not a good argument to make. But anyways, I just wanted to put that in there. If someone is actually wanting to dive deeper, I think the last episode was from someone that wasn't on one side, but super neutral, and he was shitting a lot also on his own side. So I love that a lot for people that want to check that out.
Yeah, no, and that's perfect. Now I'll send people in the comments over here and they can listen to my answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Then perfect. Thank you so much, Brian, for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you? What's your YouTube channel? What's your Twitter? What's your all of it?
Yeah, just search Brian Harrington on YouTube and you'll get to me. Yeah, just would appreciate you coming over, checking out the channel. It's at Brian Harrington on YouTube and on Twitter.
Awesome. Then thank you so much, Brian, for being on. You were an amazing guest. I loved our conversation. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.